Welcome to People in Power. I'm Juliana Rufus. On today's program, a state that doesn't exist.
It was said very clearly that if you stay here, if you keep enunciating the same message, doing the same things, you will probably be dead by tomorrow or the day after.
The world knows very little about the separatist area of Transnistria, which in 1990 declared its independence from the former Soviet Republic of Moldova. Although not formally recognized by any state or international organization, it has its own government, parliament, military, police, even currency. Since declaring independence, Transnistria has become known as a criminal state, and it has shut itself off from the world. It's a country harboring many secrets, and that's the way they like it.
This is the border between Moldova and Transnistria, a place known as Europe's Cuba. 16 years ago, fierce fighting took place here as Transnistria broke away to become a free state. Every year, Transnistrians take to the streets to celebrate their independence.
This medal is the Order of Honor for my contribution to the Republic becoming a reality. I was in the trenches to defend the Republic, so my testimony is not hearsay. I've experienced this personally.
Officially, this parade is the only legitimate reason for us being here. We have permission for one day to film inside this breakaway region, a place recognized by almost no one.
What's happening here is that we can only see the tip of the iceberg. The truth is that things are way more serious, and that is unacceptable for a bit of land that is geographically positioned in European space.
Many secrets are hidden inside this self-declared republic.
They held a pistol to my head and said, "Do you want to live? Or we can drown you and throw you in the river. You will never set foot on Transnistrian territory again, neither in the city or in the region. They are ruffians who do not care about human life."
This is Dmitry Sowin. Wanted by Interpol for murder, he holds high office in Transnistria. He's an officer in the MGB, the local division of the former KGB, the Russian Secret Service. Sowin is said to hide in Tiraspol, the capital of the self-proclaimed Republic of Transnistria.
Sowin ist auch Offizier des transnistrischen KGB und jemand, der
He is an officer in the Transnistrian KGB. He is very active in organizing people for the independence of Transnistria in a very aggressive way.
Unabhängigkeit, der sogenannten Unabhängigkeit Transnistriens. Die Art und Weise ist ausgesprochen.
Of course, all this is fed by the economic hardship in the region and the ongoing conflict between Moldova and Transnistria.
Sozialen Lage in dem Land und die Tatsache, dass der Transnistrien-Konflikt nicht gelöst ist.
Criminal activity and crime don't live in secret here. Dmitry Sowin heads the Che Guevara School of Political Leadership. Their headquarters are not hard to find. Sowin does not exactly give the impression of a hunted man. He doesn't object to our cameras. He appears to have no fear of being caught.
Look at the youngsters. We have to be careful they do not catch cold in this weather. But it's a nice sight, isn't it? It's good to see this in Tiraspol, don't you think?
Sowin stirs up the nationalistic feelings among the younger generation. His political party is even more nationalistic than that of the president, Igor Smirnov.
I do not say that we grab power by violence, but if there is no other option, we may have to.
If Smirnov ever decides to make peace and submits to international legislation, Sowen's fate is sealed.
Дело в том, что из-за того, что официальные власти Молдовы преследуют меня по политическим мотивам,
Interpol is looking for me, I can only move around my own country.
И подали в розыск в Интерпол. Я практически не могу выехать из этого пространства, то есть за пределы Приднестровья. И Тирасполь — это как мое убежище.
Tiraspol is my safe haven. In that sense, I'm like Yasser Arafat, who in the end only had his own residence to move around.
В собственной резиденции, рискуя ежедневно жизнью.
Igor Smirnov, the president of 15 years, is the spider at the center of this web. Together with his family, he controls the vast majority of the economy. Poverty is plain to see. Transnistrians are not wealthy people, but there are a lot of new buildings, and they all have the same name, Sharif. Smirnov and his family own all of the Sharif buildings. Supermarkets and petrol stations, even the local football club is called Sharif. Its home base is the new Sharif Sports Complex, which cost 200 million euros. Transnistria chooses to follow its own path. It considers the rest of the world to be its enemy, except, interestingly enough, other separatist areas in the region. The Independence Day celebrations are attended by delegations from Abkhazia, Abkhazia and South-Ossetia, as well as Russia and the Ukraine. So what else is hiding in Transnistria behind the facade? How does the population deal with this fate? Is there no resistance? Leaving the parade means we leave the protection offered by our permit. Hardly anyone wants to have anything to do with us. We are now filming here illegally. Just to approach people doesn't seem wise. Not for us, but also not for them. So to understand Transnistria, we need to talk to its critics. Amongst them, many Romanians who feel persecuted by the current regime.
They use various methods to force people to leave, from the most simple methods, like psychological force, sounds, threatening phone calls, to personal, direct threats.
Sergei Ostav, a refugee, fled the country 10 years ago.
It was said very clearly that if you stay here, if you keep enunciating the same message, doing the same things, you will probably be dead by tomorrow or the day after.
Tata meu, în perioada respectivă, a fost directorul școlii moldovenești și susținea părinții.
My father was the director of the Moldova school then, and he supported the parents of the children of this school who wanted their children educated in the Latin alphabet. This option was clearly expressed by the parents of these children, and there are thousands of children in that town, South-Ossetia. He continuously received threats and was treated as a threat to the authorities in this region. Subsequently, my parents were forced to leave the region, firstly because they lost their jobs, and secondly because in this region they would not be employed as teachers anymore. There are a lot of people who disappear, either because they have a dissenting opinion or they stand up for a cause, like the one I was just talking about. This is one of the tactics we know they have already used during the Soviet period.
Din păcate, în cazul acesta, vedem aceleași metode utilizate și în timpul actual, deci în viața contemporană.
Transnistria has its own stamps, passports and money, but these are not accepted in any other country. Another example of the way Transnistria is isolating itself more and more. With hardly any commercial relations, how does it gain its revenue? Very simple, says the former Minister of Moldova's Defense Department. Trading in weapons left by the Soviet army.
Ammunition for throwing mines, grenades, rocket systems, Kalashnikovs, anti-tank grenades. All of these are made in Transnistria and are being exported en masse to different countries. This used to be the reality, and of course, a lot of weapons and ammunition have been exported under different pretexts. Cement was to be delivered, but the cement transport consisted for more than half of ammunition and weapons. These exports were for the Caucasus area, Middle East, Iraq, Iran, and other countries that were in conflict, including Africa.
Dmitry Soen is also said to be involved in the arms trade. He's accused of dealing in components for nuclear weapons.
Такой курьезный случай. Меня обвиняли в том, что я торгую ядерными боеголовками.
All this nonsense about weapons in the Moldovan media and the Sunday Times was an article that I am dealing in nuclear warheads. What nonsense.
Молдова и не только она, допустим, Sunday Times.
Anyone who would have a look around can see such a thing is impossible.
Вот чуть ли не здесь, в этой школе. Но это настолько нелепый вымысел, что в него могут поверить только те люди, которые тут ни разу не бывали.
After the break, crimes going unpunished in the secret state of Transnistria. Hello and welcome back. Since declaring its independence from Moldova in 1990, Transnistria's status remains unresolved. Unrecognized by the rest of the world, it has gained a reputation as a criminal state where corruption and organized crime are rife.
In a hotel, just 500 meters from the city center, is a growth industry. Transnistria's trade in women.
I immediately understood that I could not escape. They were very strict. We were often tied up, without food, without water. They hit us, forced us to have sex with different men.
The Moldovan police say Transnistria operates a network in women trafficking. According to the Helsinki Committee, even these human traders are protected by the authorities.
Deci, ăștia au arestat 4 persoane.
Recently, Moldovan police officers were arrested in Tiraspol. They wanted to arrest a network of human traders. The core of the network was in Hotel Iced.
Ăștia filmau la momentul respectiv, deci pregăteau operațiunea de...
They were preparing to round up the criminal network, but the Transnistrian authorities did not want that.
Până la urmă n-au vrut să cedeze aceasta.
Maybe they would for a huge sum of money. The Moldovan police were arrested and the investigation was made impossible to continue.
Practic au arestat polițiștii, după ce au făcut practic imposibilă prelungirea acestei operații, adică capturarea persoanelor respective și evident după asta le-au dat drumul.
The victims are the women who fall into the hands of Transnistrian gangs. The ones who have escaped tell their story at the Moldovan relief organization, La Strada. They speak of brutal practices that have gone unpunished.
When I called home to my parents, they held a knife to my throat. When I tried to refuse a customer, I was beaten very badly. I worked under these circumstances for 3 months. When the police took us, they came and took us back to the house and beat us.
They have nowhere to go for help. They say police are involved.
Once I tried to escape together with another girl, but they had my papers and the police arrested us. Then they called the boss. They had a close tie. They rang him and he came and took us. Then we were beaten very badly.
They made me do things. They hit me badly and separated me from the rest of the girls. A week after the beating, I lost my baby. I had a miscarriage. I did try to escape. I managed to get outside, but I did not know anybody, so I started running. Then a car came up from behind me. It was the boss with a few of his people.
La un moment dat s-a apropiat, vinea o mașină din spatele meu, era patronul care...
I had nowhere to go. I kept running and they hit me with the car and ran me over. After that, I do not remember anything.
Altă ieșire, am început să alerg și ei au mers cu mașina peste mine, la care mi-au fracturat bazinul, picioarele, coloana
I woke up in hospital. My legs were broken. My spinal column was broken. After they treated me, I stayed in a convent. The nuns took care of me for 7 months.
La care am stat 7 luni de zile la pat.
I saw with my own eyes how a girl died. They took out a gun. That was the first time in my life I had seen something like that. And they shot her because she cried that she wanted to go home. They said, "You want to go home?" They shot her while we were standing next to her.
There was a case of a friend who escaped. She left and never came back alive. They found her beside the road with bits of glass all over her body, totally cut up.
It's not just these trafficked women who are in danger. Citizens who disagree with the authorities also find themselves in terrible situations.
At the moment, there are more than 240 people on the list of missing persons. In the village of Kitskan, for example, more than 10 people are missing. And in 3 years, more than 20 people have been murdered. 4 girls have been raped.
For a long time, human rights organizations have been trying to find out what is happening inside Transnistria.
Мы правозащитная организация, мы имеем на это право.
They're not welcome and are often harassed on the border. These pictures were filmed by the Helsinki Committee. Earlier this year, Maxim Belinsky wanted to attend a lawsuit in Tiraspol to see that there was a fair trial. The judge refused to allow him into court. When he left, he was kidnapped by 3 men.
They pushed me in the car by force, pulled a bag over my head and told me that I should not move, otherwise they would kill me. They had a gun against my head. Then they tied my arms behind my back. After approximately 10 minutes, we got out of the car, and they pulled the bag off my head, and I saw that we were on the bank of the river Nistria. They asked why I was concerned with the lawsuit, who I worked for, and for how long. Questions about the activities of the Helsinki Committee and other questions. Who our contacts were in the Transnistrian region, and particularly in Tiraspol.
Și a doilea gen de întrebări este dacă cu cine ținem noi legături în regiunea transnistriană, în special în orașul Tiraspol.
The men then threatened to shoot Maxim through the head or drown him.
I have reason enough to believe that they were serious, because there had been enough cases like this, where bodies were found in the Nistru, sometimes made heavy with stones so they would not float or otherwise. A few months later, these bodies were found decomposed. After I said that I would never come back, they took my bag with my documents and left me there in the snow. If they do things like this to members of the Helsinki Committee, you do not want to know what they would do with ordinary citizens that do not yield to the authorities.
Like many other things in Transnistria, human rights are overlooked. Criminal activity is part of everyday life and is carried on without fear of punishment.
The international and European community are not aware of the reality in the production and delivery of weapons in the Transnistrian area. There's no evidence. The attention of the international governments has completely disappeared. That is a reality.
Unfortunately, the reality is sad, and it is getting worse. Many people are leaving. There is despair, and I do not know if people still have hope in this region. I can see a great despair and no future in this region if no acceptable and civilized circumstances are being created. This is an emotional message because it has to do with my family and what I have gone through. In my thoughts, I have never left this region because it is part of me. It made me what I am. I believe in a better future, therefore it is necessary for the European countries to become involved.
Să înțeleagă de fapt că aceasta este parte componentă a spațiului european și să ne ofere un sprijin, un ajutor.
That's it for this edition of People in Power. If you would like to comment on our report or on any other matter, we'd love to hear from you on aljazeera.net/English. Until next time, goodbye.